the most asymmetric bet I've ever seen. It'll be a dollar value for Bitcoin because nobody will use dollars anymore. I mean, that's where we're headed. It's just Gresham's law on a mass scale, right? Sell the thing that's depreciating, the dollar, buy the thing that's going up, Bitcoin. It's true that in 5 years, Bitcoin will be somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million a coin.
Bitcoin isn't just another asset. It's the most asymmetric bet Larry Lepard has ever seen. He believes we're heading toward a future where the US dollar becomes obsolete and Bitcoin takes center stage as the global reserve currency. In this explosive discussion, Lepard breaks down Gresham's law, the inevitable devaluation of fiat, and why Bitcoin could hit $1 million per coin in just a few years. He also tackles the controversial idea of the US selling its gold reserves to stack Bitcoin and why a strategic Bitcoin reserve is America's best move for financial dominance. Stay tuned for Lepard's boldest predictions yet. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the financial revolution ahead.
He was trying to make?
Yeah, there will always be stocks, and gold will
Right.
always, gold will, I think, always have some value because it's rare and scarce. It'll trend toward quote unquote what I call jewelry value. Yeah, no, there's a lot of room ahead, and that's why those of us who are in this area and in this trade are so excited. I mean, I've said it many times. I say it in the book. I mean, this is the most asymmetric bet I've ever seen, and generally speaking, to get a really asymmetric bet means you can only lose 1x and you can make 2 to 500x. Generally, to get a good asymmetric bet, you've got to find, a company that's growing, that's going to be well managed, and it's going to do the right things. And so you're dependent upon the management team. I mean, for every Microsoft, there are a lot of shitty companies that are, that were in tech that weren't so well managed, didn't become Microsoft. And here you really don't have a management team. I mean, you have the core developers, but everyone votes on it. I think the protocol is pretty well set. We had the fork wars, we had the block size wars. I mean, all that got kind of resolved. I don't think it's changing from here forward. So with that in mind, now it's just on autopilot. It's just going to run itself out until, we're doing transactions to Satoshis, and everyone's going to say, what's the dollar? There won't be a dollar value for Bitcoin because nobody will use dollars anymore. I mean, that's where we're headed. Now, some would say that's 50 years out, and maybe they're right. I tend to think it's a lot shorter than that, a lot shorter. But we'll have to see. I mean, it's, the trend, though, is extremely clear, which is why, Saylor's strategy of sell the, it's just Gresham's law on a mass scale, right? Sell the thing that's depreciating, the dollar, buy the thing that's going up, Bitcoin, okay? That's it. I mean, it's not any more complicated than that. It's just, you do that and rinse, wash, repeat, and just, let time do its thing. Because it's true that in 5 years, Bitcoin will be somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million a coin.
So the last thing on gold really quick, what are your thoughts on Saylor saying we should sell some of our gold that we have in the United States and buy Bitcoin with it?
I don't think it's as crazy as some people have said it is. I mean, I think that, gold is going to get demonetized. It's interesting because there's a lot of debate around this whole area of, do you want the national federal government to be strong? I mean, Peter Schiff said, well, if you're saying the government should buy, Bitcoin, that you're being a statist because you want to prop up the government. And there's a whole hardcore libertarian part of the Bitcoin world that says, like, screw propping up the government, screw a strategic reserve, screw Jason Lowry. I just want the fucking government to fail. Let's just let them go bankrupt and fail, and we'll figure out some better solution. I'm sympathetic to that, but I also think that, there still is a little bit of a great powers competition left, and there are these spheres of the world, and China's one, and Russia's one, and the Middle East is another, and these spheres all have influence over other parts of the world, and I honestly I'd rather, I think, live under our rule of law than China's rule of law or Russia's rule of law, and our political system, as broken, as dysfunctional as it is, I still think it's better than theirs, and so I do kind of want to see the U.S. way prevail. And that being the case, I want to see the U.S., if we're going to do strategic reserve kind of stuff, it might as well make it in the thing that's the best, which is Bitcoin. And so, Russia and China have bet on gold, very bigly. I mean, especially China. Russia, I think, might be stacking Bitcoin. I don't know, but I tend to believe they get it a little bit better. And so, in a sense, if we go with Bitcoin and they go with gold, we're leapfrogging them, and very much the way that in the early 1800s, the U.S. and England went with gold as Britain got off the silver standard, the pound as the standard, which was originally their currency, and the gold became the backing of the pound. And China and India didn't do that; they stuck with silver, and they suffered massively as a result of that. And so I want to see the U.S. pick the right thing, which is Bitcoin. And if we were to sell the gold, I mean, I think I laugh a little bit at Saylor's comment because he says, "Oh yeah, we should sell our gold." Well, okay, Michael, that's assuming we still have it, because if those of us in the gold camp who've been watching carefully for a long time now and recognize that all our gold is unaudited since the 50s, despite the occasion, Mnuchin flew down to Fort Knox and showed a few bars, okay, but that's not the whole thing. We're not so sure we have the gold we say we have, so hard to sell it if we don't really have it. But in general, I think that if the U.S. government is going to do a strategic reserve, it should be in Bitcoin, full stop. I think we've got to be careful here, though. There's also timing. If the U.S. government were tomorrow say we're going to Bitcoin as the strategic reserve, and we want to go to Bitcoin as the reserve currency to replace the dollar, the dollar would plummet and we'd have massive inflation. And so, my sense is, they're playing with dials that you can't go from 1 to 10, in a few minutes. We got to trend in the right direction, which is to say trend towards sounder money. And so, the fact that we're going to have a Bitcoin strategic reserve is a good thing. I mean, I wish he'd been a little bit more forceful in saying he's not going to sell any of the Bitcoin we have. I think that's the case, but I wish he'd said that. I wish he'd reported on whether or not the Biden administration did sell any of what they had. I know there was a time when they were thinking of selling some of it. And I'd wish they'd say, we fully support the Lummis bill and we want to see that passed. And to the degree that isn't passed, we'll use maybe the Exchange Stabilization Fund to buy Bitcoin. I think we want to see all of those things, but we can and we probably will. I mean, my sense is right now is Besant is trying to figure out what his next move is. I mean, he knows he's got a big problem with his debt. He knows he's got to fund out a lot of debt short term. Trump's already said to Powell that rates are too high. And so they're trying to figure out what their next moves are monetarily to get us going in the right direction. And it's, as my partner says, as David Foley says, I mean, this is brain surgery. I mean, it's really complicated shit. And they've got to be very careful to move in a way that's intelligent so that the markets don't, freak out and blow up. But honestly, I mean, having a hedge fund guy running it, hedge fund guy who's a sound money guy who knows financial history extremely well. Those are the way I describe Scott Besant. I mean, honestly, you couldn't think of anybody better suited to try and get us through this transition. I mean, he's pretty well suited to this. And in the book, actually, I talk about this. I mean, I talk about what I call kind of a monetary reset. And that, to me, look, inflation is in the cards. I mean, there's just no way around it. We got too much debt. We've got to devalue that debt. We've got to devalue the dollar. So the question is, are we going to do it in a sloppy way where something breaks and they print a bunch more? Or are we going to do it, in a long drawn out way where everyone suffers with, kind of stagflation and a terrible economy? Or are we going to do it just in a one-time way where we say, hey, we're buying this much Bitcoin, we're buying this much gold, we're going to back the dollar with gold or Bitcoin or both, and we're going to stop the inflation dead in its tracks. And whatever the new reset price is would be very, very inflationary, but it would be a one-time hit to everybody, and then we'd go forward on a sound money standard. And that's, to me, that's the fairest and best way to get from this broken system we're in right now to a new system that has sound money at its base, because that's the goal. When we get to, there've been a lot of countries that have had hyperinflations or very high inflations for brief periods of time, and you can fix it. I mean, this is not rocket science. You can fix it by taking your currency and linking it to something that's limited in supply. And when you do this, things get better. I mean, surprise, quickly, because everyone just reprices on the new thing and all the prices settle out where they should be. And then the economy runs and you've solved the problem. But, I can't for a moment suggest that this isn't going to have some pain for somebody, and that it's not going to be tumultuous as it goes down, because it will be, and I mean, specifically, there's going to be huge pain for long-term debt holders. I mean, they're just not going to, they're going to lose a lot of the value of what they think they own.